And that means we're on the air. And then I'm going to play this thing. And I think this plays music. I guess we'll see if people can... people might be listening. It's fine if they're not. It's the magic of radio, because you just imagine you have this gigantic audience, and you're like, I'm sure they're listening. It's fine.
Thousands listening right
now. Hi, and welcome to Talkward. I'm Marty Dundix, editor-in-chief of Weekly Humorous Magazine, and this is Talkward, a fun little podcast where professionally funny people come and tell awkward and cringeworthy stories, and I'm super excited for today's guest, because I've never met her in person, yet we've communicated on the online world of comedy and Twitter and email for like over 2 years at least.
Yeah.
And you're in my office. You're here in the studio. You're here at Weekly Humorist.
We did it. I feel like we really did it.
I know. It's Brooke Preston, everybody. Hilarious comedy writer, extraordinaire, new author of a brand new book called New Erotica for Feminists, Satirical Fantasies of Love, Lust, and Equal Pay. Co-written by Caitlin Kunkel, Fiona Taylor, Carrie Whitmer, and Brooke Preston, who's right here.
I'm
Welcome
on
to Talkward.
That's me.
I know, your name.
I did it.
It's in bright neon letters.
That was not our first cover.
So we're going to talk all about writing a book for the first time, the process of writing a book, and just you as a comedy writer, and you are from Ohio?
I am.
So you're
born and raised.
Big New York City?
Yeah, well, I lived in New York City after college for like 2 years.
Okay.
And I did the starving artist thing.
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to be in New York, and I knew I wanted to be like sort of near entertainment at large.
Yeah.
But I didn't have like a specific idea of what that was, because growing up in Ohio, you're just like, so if I want to be on SNL, like, does Lauren just call you like at some point?
You're
like how does that work?
At least I know I'm not supposed to be in Ohio to make this happen.
Yeah,
so
like I had the general idea of like, I think I'm supposed to be here to make this happen.
Right.
And it turns out that is not how it works. Sadly, I was here for 2 years and he did not call.
So you were in New York for 2 years after college?
Yeah.
And where did you go to college?
Ohio University. Go
Ohio
Bobcats.
University.
Mm-hmm. Not to be confused with Ohio State University.
Or as the football players call it, the
Ohio State University. Which I now live in Columbus, and we are very much Ohio State football fans.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ohio University in Athens, which is sort of like this lovely little... it's like an enclave of southeastern Ohio that's like surrounded by like Appalachia Light, but it is like this leftover hippie town from the 60s that never really decided to move past that.
To not be in the 60s?
Yeah, and it's kind of great. So
that
it's
sounds like a wonderland.
It is a wonderland, and it's a lovely place to go back to. It's a really special place. And if you see on like an electoral map, it's like a place that's very deeply confusing to Wolf Blitzer and Peter, or like.
Does it just go either way?
No,
anytime?
It's very blue, but they don't know
blue.
why. Like,
okay.
So they're like, here's Cleveland and Columbus and Cincinnati, and those are the blue areas in Ohio. And what's this little guy? And we're always like, Athens.
They're like, what's in the water there?
Yeah, they're like, that's strange. Like, what an anomaly. And we're like, no, that's Athens.
And you were in New York City for 2 years.
2 years.
So you went from school. Mm-hmm. You came to New York to be a comedy star.
I came to be something. I don't know. I mean, I've been a lifelong comedy nerd. So, but I just wasn't quite sure how to translate that. Like
comedy nerd to me is SCTV reruns.
Yeah.
That kind of comedy nerd. Like old school, like Eugene Levy, John Candy.
Well, like I would sneak down when Late Night with Conan O'Brien first became a thing. I was in, I think, junior high, 6th or 7th grade.
Yeah.
And then I would sneak down to the basement after my parents would go to sleep to watch that because of the sketches and I liked the guests and things too, but I really liked the...
Masturbating Bear.
Yeah, all of it.
Classy stuff.
Real highbrow stuff. Real highbrow stuff. So... I loved all of that. I loved SNL. I still love SNL. I think it kind of gets a bad rap. But
people are always mean to SNL. And
it's sort of the cool thing to say that it used to be better than it is, which sometimes that's true, but sometimes it's not true.
But that's always true for anything. If you could find news reports in the 80s criticizing SNL in the 80s that it's not as good as the 70s.
Right.
And then in the 90s it wasn't as good as the 80s.
Well, also I think they're intentionally there's an intentional thing where they're trying to do some highbrow things, some absurdist things, some really broad or topical things.
Yeah.
And they want there to be something for everyone in one episode.
Right.
And so if someone turns it on and it's like not their thing, they just assume it's all not their thing.
Yeah.
Like, so there's definitely pieces in each episode where I'm kind of like, "Meh, that didn't work for me."
Yeah.
Not because, you know, in my position of power, I'm just like, oh yeah, no, that didn't work for me. But you know,
I go and I
pieces that
I
don't
hit this red button that I
That's right.
have,
Yes,
and I'm
that's
like,
right.
"Hey, Lauren, this sucks."
yeah, I send strongly worded letters. And maybe that's why he doesn't call.
That would be fun if that actually still exists. With the old Nielsen rating system, used to be like a button that was
Yes.
attached to your television, and you'd be like, "No."
When I lived in New York, we were in Nielsen, like family.
Yeah.
My roommate and I got asked to do it because you get paid, I don't know, some paltry amount to
like
do
$5.
it. Yeah. Oh, it's little. It's a little amount, but we were like, yes, please, money. So we lived in a studio apartment in the Upper East Side. Well, first, we lived in Roosevelt Island before it was cool, and so we were.
Isn't Roosevelt Island like an ex-psychiatric hospital ward?
Yes.
Yeah,
but when
it
we
was
lived
like-
there, I think it was a current psychiatric.
Oh,
ward.
really?
Well, it was like 2 long-term care hospitals
Yeah.
where people that didn't really know what to do with their loved ones that were in that camp would just sort of leave them. And so it was like we went in being nice Midwesterners with the nicest of intentions, like being like, we're going to just be the people that are just like, hi, neighbor. Like, we love you no matter what. And then after about like your 3rd trip to Gristedes, the one Gristedes on the island, which
Right.
is like the saddest Gristedes, where you go and you're like just trying to get your soup and you're like $10 of groceries because you're poor. And like we went and everyone is not only, you know, in a adaptive state where they're either in a wheelchair or something
Right.
like that, but it would be like, you know, I'm on a bed with like a mirror and some more serious
Yeah.
things happening, which you would think like, oh, that's horrible. And you have all the compassion in the world for them. But then when that's every one that you interact with
Yeah.
on the island, after a while, you're like, well, this is horrible.
It's an
I'm
interesting
now
place for a
Yeah.
new New Yorker to be experiencing New
exactly
York
like,
through
I was
Roosevelt
totally like the
Island.
girl off the bus that's like,
Yeah.
I have big dreams. And
Yeah.
then everyone's like, oh, honey, no.
It all depends on where you first start, I think, in New York. Because I came here, I went to Syracuse, and I came here, and I just happened to luck into like Park Slope, which is
Oh.
a lovely neighborhood.
Lovely.
right?
I'm staying there with Caitlin.
You're down the street from me. I
know.
live right down the street
I
from her.
know. That's wonderful.
Ah,
Yeah, it's a very iconic, like to me, when you think of New
like
York
Brownstone,
and Brooklyn.
yeah, Brooklyn.
Yeah, 100%.
It's like how people lovingly used to think of the Cosby Show.
Yeah.
And now it's just like
Yes.
Creepville.
I started to say that, and I'm like, oh god, I don't want to bring Cosby into this. It's gonna really wreck the mood. But yeah, that's 100. It's like idyllic
yeah.
when Cosby was
Stoops.
good. Yep, stoops.
A lot of stoops.
A lot of stoops, and so that was lovely.
So you
but-
came to New York. You tried to be in comedy, and what did you do in New York in that time to be into comedy? Did you do the like the UCB?
So
did
that's
you do
kind of
the
my
Pit?
greatest regret. I could,
Okay.
like I didn't really have the money at the time, and you know when you're working those non-professional jobs when you're just starting out, you have such a varied schedule. Like you kind of have to be there when they say to
Mm-hmm.
be there, and you get your schedule like the day before, and it's always shifting. So that wasn't so much an option for me, although I wish I would have just been like, I'll clean toilets, like I'll make it happen,
Yeah.
you know? So that's kind of a regret for me that I should have started this so much sooner because I knew it was something that needed to be part of my life.
Yeah.
But I think in my mind at 23, I was like, I'll always be here. I'll
Yeah.
obviously always live in New York. I'll just have lots of chances to do this. So it will be fine. I have plenty of time. And then, so I worked at Planet Hollywood in Times Square as the door host, the person with the megaphone.
Oh wow!
Across from the Naked Cowboy. He's
Yeah.
cool. He makes a ton of money, by the way.
does,
He
yeah.
goes to the bank like 4 or 5 times a day to deposit all of his like boot cash.
a lot of boot cash.
Lot of boot cash. But he was chill. But yeah, so my job was to scream into a megaphone
Mm-hmm.
the same spiel day and night for Planet. I had to audition
At
for
that Planet Hollywood, if I'm not mistaken, is the life-size naked Sly Stallone statue.
I don't know if it was there at the time,
Okay.
but it probably is now. But yeah, it was at the time. It was
No,
like,
it's not. I'm sorry. It's a Lifetime. It's the naked Arnold Schwarzenegger from Terminator.
That's
what it is.
100% right. Yes.
Yes.
And then I eventually get to move inside to be a hostess, and there's a car from like a Sylvester Stallone movie, like
Hanging,
suspended
yeah.
over you at all times. So you're just like at risk of death for $10 an hour, which is amazing.
Did
But
you
it
pop by the Planet Hollywood since you've been in town?
I have have not. I don't think I think I'm persona non grata from there. I was fired from Planet. I was the only job I'm ever fired from.
What did you do at Planet Hollywood to get canned from Planet Hollywood?
I was late twice.
Oh, that doesn't seem like fun at all.
No, and once was during the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.
It would have been something. If
Try getting there on time during the Macy's Thanksgiving Day
I stole a proton pack from the wall.
Oh, God. I wish I would have gone out differently.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm taking these NSYNC outfits, and you can't stop me. I'm going to wear Chris Kirkpatrick's green suit, and I'm going to wear it out and screw all of you. Yeah, it was an interesting place. And the same thing played on a loop every 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So that'll make you nuts.
Yeah, definitely. I used to work at Letterman, and I would be giving out free tickets to tourists. Mm-hmm. And I would hang out in that Times Square area, mm-hmm. also right by the Naked Cowboy. Mm-hmm. I used to call it my corner office because I'd be standing on the street corner.
Yes, of course.
And I was making it.
Yeah, yeah. I felt very.
I was like, this is
even
so
though I
sad.
worked at, so the fact that I had to audition made me feel legit. Like I was like, I had to audition for this, so
I'm in the business,
pretty much in it. And yeah, in the business. And like I can see the Naked Cowboy, and he's been on TV, so I'm pretty much there. And that is the job, the only salvageable piece of that, other than some good friends that I still have from that time in my life where we were like starving artists together, is that I did meet Justin Timberlake at that job.
Did you?
And I got to take him to the bathroom. I'm like, not inside, but I got to take him to the door of the restroom very unexpectedly. And this is 2003.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's like at the height. Mm-hmm. This is like the height of my JT. I was single, was ready for it.
Anything was possible.
Yeah, and all doors were open. And in my Planet Hollywood, like baseball tee and you know, like orthopedic safety shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I got to be alone in a room with Justin Timberlake for 2 minutes because we went to the private like banquet area so no one would bother him.
Wow.
He was lovely. He smelled nice. He was tall.
I bet.
At the time, it was like, I was like, this is the greatest day of my life, and nothing will ever top that.
You still tuck that away, though.
I mean, it is what it is. You know,
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah.
It was like good for the moment. Mm-hmm. Like it was the right celebrity experience for the right moment.
Yes.
It's not the right celebrity experience for 2018.
Right.
But it was the right one for 2003 when I was 23.
Hey, it's better than if it was like Robert Duvall.
Well, the first person I met when I moved to
I got
New York
to take
City,
Robert Duvall to the men's room.
I mean, that's kind of an amazing story. I kind of wish that was the case. Like, I wish that would have been true. The first person I met in New York at all, my friend and I from college, we moved here. We put our stuff down, and we're like, let's go find jobs. We take our little resumes, and we're, like, ready to go. We're walking in Times Square, and I see this guy, and I'm like, he's really tall. Like, he looks like someone. Oh, that's John Mayer. And so,
there you go. That's someone.
And because I am who I am, and my friend was again, it's 2003, so like, let's give context to this story. So my friend, who was very into him at that time, I was like, I'm gonna be the friend. Like, I'm gonna be the wingman that does this. So I'm like, excuse me, hi, are you John Mayer? And he's like, I am. So we like sat and chatted with him in Times Square, or like just off of it for like 15 minutes. He was lovely.
That's awesome.
He flirted with my friend. It was great.
That's
and at the
delightful.
time, it seemed very non-problematic and fine.
I mean, I guess maybe I'm stuck in a time warp because I'm old, and I think I stopped remembering or caring about celebrity at around 2007.
Yeah,
like things stopped registering for them.
Right.
So people tell stories of like, put it in context. I'm like, that is the only context I know.
That's it. But like, it was like you want to meet the right celebrity at the time they're peaking.
That's true. These
so
are
like
all
that
the
was
top.
like a good time to meet him, and he was lovely.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so that was like such a good, like for us, we're like, this is going to be New York for us. It's going to be like this
Every
all
day.
the time.
Every day.
Just
and you stayed for 2 years.
I stayed for 2 years. I worked, so I worked that job. I worked a lot of internships. I worked like 1 or 2 day internships that were very exciting for like MTV. I worked for MTV Made sometimes as an intern, like a casting intern, but not for long. They would just be like, come down for a day or come down for 2 days. And then I got paid $40 once to stand outside of TRL with a poster for someone I had no idea who they were and be like, woo! So that was a good day.
Yeah.
So just real high end.
That was a hugely popular show.
High-end entertainment.
Yeah.
High-end entertainment stuff. And then I worked at a political nonprofit that was eventually dissolved into Move On PAC called Music for America.
Okay.
So I did that. I was like a state coordinator for them.
And at this time, are you doing any comedy writing?
Not really. I mean, yes, but just not sending it anywhere.
So you're
'Cause-
comedy writing, but you're not submitting. But
Yeah, I
are
had
you
like a big
doing-
notebook of ideas. I wrote sketches. I was part of a sketch troupe in college.
Okay.
And so it was very much part of my life, but I was going to see a lot of comedy. So I was
Okay.
like in it. Like I would go to UCB like several times a week,
Me too.
but I never did anything about
We
it.
were
Like, I
in the
went to,
same audiences, I bet.
Probably.
Definitely.
I went to ASCAT a number of times because it was free. You
was
could wait
free.
in line
You
for
would
the
wait in
free
line.
one.
I would go to
Or
that
you
one.
could pay to the other. I
Right.
went to the free one. So we were probably just like hanging out in line together.
They had a ton. I mean, they would get
Incredible.
Maybe they
cast.
still do. They moved the whole UCB thing to this weirdo theater that's much nicer, but it's so far away.
Yes.
But the old school Chelsea
This is the one under Gristedes or
I
whatever
loved
that
it.
is.
That was a
Yeah.
great
That was
theater.
awesome. It was a former like porn theater.
Was it?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I
could
read.
see
I
that.
think it was Amy Poehler's book where they talk about like first buying or renting that space and
Yeah.
having to like clean it
cleaned
out
it a lot.
and talking about how that's so disgusting.
Very.
Finding things that you just can't forget.
It was
But
amazing to go to those ASCAT shows. You would go and you would be like Amy Poehler
Incredible
and it would be
cast.
like current SNL cast members and late night people and
Yes.
you
So I
know.
feel like I was collecting a lot of comedy experiences that now still influence me. So
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't like for nothing, but I definitely wasn't performing. And I was doing my first freelance writing, just like music reporting or entertainment reporting freelance. And I worked at Spiewak, the coat streetwear company. I was a PR
really?
person, like an intern for them for
Okay.
a while, paid intern. And so like I just did a variety of odd jobs.
Yeah.
I worked at Cold Stone Creamery for a while and sang for tips.
Did you?
Yeah, on the Upper East Side. So like I did. So the show that I went to, I went to Conan O'Brien's 10th anniversary special
Okay.
at the Beacon. That was amazing. I went to the show that still to this day I'm like that was one of the best things I've ever done. Do you remember Soundtracks Live at UCB? They did.
Yeah.
They tried the show where they did the live soundtrack to 80s movies, and then my understanding of it is basically reenacted an 80s movie, like a John Hughes movie from memory or something sort
Right.
of like a real drilled down, like a dumbed down version of it.
Yeah.
So they were taping a pilot of that at Beacon Theater. They filled it up with a live audience, and the cast was incredible. And it's almost like apocryphal because people don't believe me that all these people were in one thing. But it was Tina Fey, Amy Poehler, Paul Rudd, most of the people from The State, which I was a huge MTV,
Yeah.
The State. Were you a fan of The State?
I like the state. I like the. They had so many good shows. They had the original Jon Stewart show, which only lasted like one season.
Yeah, but it was so good.
It was so good.
And just so like all of those people
Yeah.
from that time were all in it together and more. And it was just one of those special. And they did 16 Candles.
Oh, cool.
And it was just such a special thing to see all those people really. Not even like at their famous levels yet. Like I
Yeah.
had no idea. I don't think I knew who Paul Rudd was at that time. But looking back and seeing the pictures from it and being like, oh,
Yeah.
you were really young and yet you look the same.
Exactly the
Exactly
same.
the same.
Like oddly the same.
Oh.
Like he sleeps in Tupperware or
He
something.
absolutely has a deal with a witch.
Yeah.
Like 100%. That's not natural.
Yeah, he is like a Benjamin Button, but he's not really doing anything. It's not
That's
happening.
the opposite of Benjamin Button. He's just doing nothing.
There's no aging. He's not aging
Do you
in
think
reverse.
it will happen all at once? Or do you
Yes.
think like one day he'll wake up and be like, no, I'm
He'll just,
75.
Yeah, he'll just become an old person. We won't know that it's Paul Rudd. He'll be
He'll
like
just- and then he'll just fade into
he'll
the
just be
normal
this guy.
people.
Yeah. He'll
Yeah,
just be like
interesting.
95 one day.
I feel like I don't know him, but I feel like that he would be okay with that.
He'd be like, thanks, man. That's
Yeah, he'd be
nice."
like, I got enough time. It's
Yeah,
cool.
It's fine.
That's amazing. So yeah, I feel like I took a lot in terms of the comedy scene and learned by osmosis in
Yeah.
that sense, like
Yeah.
from all the ASCATs, just seeing people do it at the very height.
Right.
But I was too timid at the time to jump in and feel. I just think I just felt like going from a really, really small town and then a smaller, I mean, it's a big school, but like I still felt like it was close to home and I
Yeah.
felt very comfortable at my college. So moving to New York, I think I wasn't able to put a finger on this, but I felt very outclassed.
So now, when do you move home to Ohio?
I move home after John Kerry does not get elected because
Okay.
the political nonprofit I was making a whole $800 a month from was like, we can't pay you anymore because John Kerry lost.
Oh, John. Kerry.
Oh, John Kerry. I blame him. And at the time, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go home. I'm going to earn a bunch of money and come back and do this the right way.
Yeah.
I'm going to go home for I put all my stuff in storage, all my stuff. I put my Papasan chair and my 2 crates of stuff. And just was like, this is a hiatus. I'm
Right.
going to go home. And I'd been like really sick because I didn't have health insurance.
Regroup.
I'm going to regroup and I'm going to come back and kill it
Yeah.
with a plan. And then I never went back.
Never went back.
No, I met my husband and I got a job at a entertainment paper that my best friend worked at and was like, we need a writer.
Perfect.
And I was like, great. And then that led to a full-time job entertainment reporting at an alt weekly in Columbus. And then
Oh, what
just
alt
went
weekly?
from there. Columbus Alive.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was
I used to
good. It was
do,
a
when I
good
first
gig.
came to the city, I did newspaper illustration, and I worked for the New York Press, which is which is the alt weekly here.
Yep.
It was like the Village Voice competitor, and I did like the weekly political or editorial type illustration stuff for that paper, and then
awesome.
I would do a painting or something, and then other alt weeklies around the country would pick it up, and they would like, second or third
that's
run type
awesome.
stuff. So it would be like LA Weekly, Orlando
Right.
Weekly. There was like a whole
Which that's
series.
huge experience when you're young. To
Yeah,
get
but it was like
syndicated out.
those alt weeklies were huge.
Oh yeah, at
They've-
the time they were very influential.
Now they're totally shutting down.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's still around, but only
it?
because it's owned by the Dispatch, by the local
Okay.
paper, who is then owned by like a conglomerate
Right.
of people that are not in publishing.
That's
But
the thing about publishing, and everyone. I think it's surprising that people don't realize publishing only exists because there's some gigantic wealthy person who doesn't mind throwing money down the drain.
Oh, 100%.
Everyone's like, "This doesn't make any money." It's like, this never
don't
made
care.
any money.
It never made money.
This never made money. Just some
No.
rich guy who made a ton of money doing something completely different.
decides for whatever reason.
wanted the influence to say, "I own this newspaper,
Yep.
and I want to say this person for president or
Yes.
this person for senate."
100%,
That's the only
yes.
reason they own it.
It's 100% yes. I still freelance for them, so I should not
That's
be
fine.
having this conversation.
No.
I feel like they're not going to hear it.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But it's just
No.
like, you're not getting any money off of people buying a
Right.
subscription to your little thing.
No.
Like, that's not how any of it happens.
That's not how any of this works.
Yeah.
But no. So, and then one great thing from that job, though, even though like you're starting out, you're making like not, but
Yeah.
in my mind, I'm like, I have health insurance
Yeah.
now. I'm making a salary, making like $35,000 a year.
You're killing it.
But at the time, you're
Yeah.
young and single and it's great.
Yeah.
But the other great part of that was they had just been bought out by the Dispatch,
Mm-hmm.
which kept them alive and literally, in that their name is alive. And they were really investing in podcasts. This was like 2005, 2006,
Okay.
2007. So like they were really investing in that early like videos, content, digital
Streaming.
content. Like they had heard somewhere at a workshop or
Yeah.
like a conference that one of them went to that like podcasts and streaming and digital was like the wave of the future.
Yeah.
So they made us all have a blog, like an individual blog. And they, in addition to the work we did, and they were like, go experiment and like go do podcasts. But they really didn't put a lot of, our editor was great. And he was a young guy that was just kind of like, go try things, like go see what sticks and
Yeah.
what people will watch. So I did all these man on the street interviews with, like I would go to the Ohio State campus.
With like a
and-
microphone, just being like, hey.
yeah, I would do like woman on the street, like Billy on the street kind
Yeah.
of stuff, except not as yelly.
Not as yelling.
And I would just sort of like interview people and joke around with them about like whatever the news of the week was. Like,
Yeah.
oh, there's like the Ohio State Michigan games coming up. Like, let's do some score predictions. Like, what do you think it'll be? And like,
Yeah.
just like what word comes to mind when you think of this? But those are still on the deep web on YouTube somewhere, by the way, if you want
I do.
to catch those.
I do want to catch those.
But it was like great experience
Yeah.
to get to have like a blank check to just go around and be like, here's all this professional equipment.
Yeah.
They got a green screen.
That's
Oh, and
awesome.
I also did very much a ripoff of Weekend Update that I called Federline and Friends, where I would just do like satirical TV news.
Yeah.
So that in some ways that was like my first professional foray into satire writing because I had my own comedy, like weekly comedy segment.
And that would be
writing and
embedded on the
performing.
site?
It would be on the site, yeah.
Nice.
And they would push it out to their like fledgling social media things like Friendster or whatever was on then.
Friendster.
Yeah, I was on
I
Friendster.
miss Friendster. I feel like that's going to be the next wave because everybody hates Facebook.
Right.
Even though people are addicted to Facebook because
Right.
it's like a phone book for the world. And if we could just like port all of our stuff over to Friendster, I
You
would
think
be.
we're going to go back?
I would love it.
It's
I
like
would
a
love
Walking Dead reset of
Yes.
the world to Friendster.
Yes.
I think I'm here for that.
Friendster, totally fine. Bring back the Friendster.
My personal theory is that if another platform could find a good way to do groups,
Yeah.
like the way that Facebook does private groups, then Facebook's gone.
Well,
Because
then-
that's the part that I can't let go of. Is like
Yeah.
we have a private group for the Belladonna writers, and that part is extremely useful. But the part where it's like people screaming about their cats and
So let's talk about that because I want to hear about the the beginnings of the Belladonna started
Yeah,
from Facebook groups.
it did.
So you guys are online.
Which I kind of hate. Like, I hate giving them credit for it, but that's the reality of how it happened.
Well, it's digital assembly. You got to meet. It's like a
Yes.
digital meetup group.
It's true. So we were all part of a comedy writing group just for women. That's a Facebook group.
And these are comedy, and the outlets you guys are trying to all get into at the exact same time is probably Shouts.
Shouts
Right.
and Murmurs, McSweeney's.
Yeah,
National
McSweeney's.
Lampoon
National
at the
Lampoon.
time. The Toast was still,
Okay.
right on the edge of like when the Toast stopped publishing.
Okay.
People are asking about packets for things, or like
Yeah.
the Onion. How do I get on Reductress? Reductress is a big
Reductress,
one.
that's a big
the
one.
Onion. So a lot of those same.
I feel like around that
places.
time, Funny or Die was lesser publishing articles.
Yeah,
They had pushed
think it
into all
happened, but it
video.
was very mysterious, like how that pipeline.
Yeah.
worked. Yeah, it was more videos. So yeah, it was like everyone trying to figure out how to get on McSweeney. But
They were
also
like, how do we
sharing-
gang up on Chris Monks in such a way
Yes,
get ourselves on there?
and Marty Dundix.
I know. Just like what's the way? So it was all kind of like insider type,
Yeah,
just like support groups.
yeah. That was a lot of what it was, and what we were noticing is that the women were on all levels, but mostly it's like a lot of emerging women. You're not like, it's not like Tina Fey being like, guys, listen, here's what you need to do. It's like a lot of people that are all in the same boat.
Right.
And then a few have been in writers' rooms or this or that, but like for the most part, it's people in our same state. And so, occasionally people would be like, I want to start something. You know, there's not enough places for women to submit and get taken seriously.
Yeah.
By which they meant not, McSweeney's is great, Shouts is great, but there just aren't a lot of satire outlets, period.
Yeah.
And then there were a lot of places like
There's
College
points,
Humor.
There's points in case. There's the
Yeah.
robot butt.
Yeah, now. But at the time, it was like, I don't know, there was just a phase of where it felt like a lot of the humor was, like the Funny or Die videos or the College Humor was very like traditionally male humor.
Totally.
And
It
so
was
if you
very
wanted to
geared.
do
And
something
also
that was
age related. It was
Yes.
like male
Yes.
18-year-olds.
It
or
was
like
if you're
16-year-olds.
23 and a guy and your name is Chad, like you are in a great place.
Yeah.
So the Chads were doing great and everyone else was not doing great. And so we also felt really disheartened that women were getting on there and saying, you know what, I'm just not going to do this anymore because it's not going anywhere. And when I do reach out to someone, I'm getting really like negative feedback or no feedback, or I just don't hear back, or it's
Yeah.
really confusing. And there was no pipeline. There's nothing,
Yeah.
And so it wasn't even like, oh, we don't get paid for this or that. It was more just like, I want to feel like my work is getting seen and that I'm
Right.
part of a community and this sort of thing. And that I can use my voice and not just stuff my voice into whatever the show is. And so we were like, Carrie Whitmer posted finally after, reading a lot of this and said, she just said, I want to start a website, like who's in? And Caitlin immediately responded and was like, yes, I'll do it. And Fiona responded and said, yes, I'll do it. And then Caitlin messaged me and was like, this girl, Carrie Whitmer in our group is starting a website. Like, do you want in? And I'm like, yes. So
And how did you guys know each other?
we knew each other from Portland. We
Okay.
had lived in Portland, Oregon at the same time. After moving back to Ohio and doing all the things we just talked about, after I got married, we moved to Portland, Oregon and lived there for 7 years.
We skipped that part, Brooke.
We did. We
There was
skipped
a gap.
it. There was a gap. Looking
We'll
back,
change
it
that in
wasn't
editing.
linear. Sorry. We missed the whole Portland chapter. So Portland was 7 years, and then we moved back to Ohio. Anyway, so I was already back in Ohio by this point.
Okay.
But Caitlin had been my teacher at Curious Comedy Theater for an advanced sketch class that I took. And I'd been like 9 months pregnant, but I remember taking her aside and being like, I'm going to miss the last class because I'm giving birth. And I'm like, but
how annoying.
I know. I was like, but I'm really serious about this and I don't want you to think I'm not serious. So like, I want to keep in touch with you. And she was so impressed by the fact that I was like this poor little waddly, woman who was like not the classic comedy profile of
Yeah.
someone who's like, pushing, I was like 33 by that point, and I'm like out to here pregnant. And I'm like, just to let you know, I'm really serious about
Yeah.
professional comedy writing. And she's like, okay. Clearly. And so then, when I moved back, she started teaching at Second City. And so she messaged me and was like, you need to take this. Like I took the first iteration of her class there, her satire series. And then now I
you
teach
teach
that
it.
with her, which is exciting.
So you guys seem to be responsible for instructing like this whole generation of online comedy writers now, because I know I get them as
Yeah.
submissions and I see
Yeah, we send the cream of the crop to you.
I see all of them also on like Shouts. They're in the New Yorker, and they're in McSweeney's, and they're
Little
maybe
Old Lady, and
Little
Points
Old
and
Lady,
Case, and Robot Bud,
and
all
Mad.
that. Yeah.
You know, Mad's
There's
doing a
some
lot
in
more
Mad.
stuff, too.
Hoo Ha Ha is doing some things that we've had people in now. So, and other things like just live shows or live readings and things, and several books.
You're making so many people better at writing comedy.
That's
you
so
know?
nice.
Like, they probably...
Marty, I'm a crier. Don't make me cry
They
on this
knew
show.
that they wanted to write comedy, but they didn't know exactly how to do it correctly. And then you guys are like, no, just change this a little bit.
Well, we saw
these are the
ourselves in
rules.
this. Like, this is why we created the Belladonnas, because we're just like, there's all this latent talent just sitting here.
Yeah.
And there's nowhere. I mean, there are places to submit it, but I feel like they just need that extra little, like, but do this, or like, but just have the confidence to do
Right.
it. And like, go ask for what you want. And so,
I tell people to submit to Belladonna because you guys give feedback that's useful.
oh, thank you. That means a lot to
Like
me.
people
That was a
people
big part
send
of it.
stuff, and I'm like, I can't help you I can't help you be funnier. I don't. It takes too much time, and I'm not a comedy instructor. You guys are.
Well, it helps that there's four of us. If
Yeah.
there was only one of us, I'd be like, it's bad, bye.
It is. It's too fast. I can't handle it.
It's
too
bad.
many.
It's
all
not
right,
good.
Bye. Yeah, it is.
But
like
having four
you
of us is
guys
good.
can tell people exactly what to change, or they can take a class.
Yeah.
I recommend your class to everybody.
Thank you.
And I'm
That's
like,
awesome.
how about this? Go take that class.
And the second city is great because it offers online classes. So you
Yeah.
don't have to be in your, I mean, obviously it offers in-person classes as well, intensives and workshops. But like the online piece was, for me, a revelation to be like, I can be hooked into this larger thing and feel like I'm really doing something and really learning something from where I'm at, because I was no less serious about it, but just life things and family things. I'm, suddenly you're in Columbus and you have a mortgage and a kid and you're
Yeah.
like, well, that didn't necessarily go on the path that
Right.
it maybe would be ideal for
Right.
comedy and the traditional pipeline. But I realized later how serious I was about it. Like, in a way, I've told people, like, getting pregnant for me was like when people hear their biological clock tick, I heard my comedy clock tick. And it, for me, where as most people would have been like, you know what, I guess I'm just going to have to let that dream die and
Yeah.
just lean hard into this. I'm very excited about being a mom and I love it. And my daughter's like almost 6 now. But that said, I also don't want that to be the only thing that I am. I was extra passionate about comedy. I knew I wanted it to be part of my life. And it took that amount of, like, I had started taking classes at Curious Comedy Theater. My husband finally bought me like a class as a Christmas gift and was like, don't be like, now I have purchased it. So now you have the guilt of like having to do it because
Right.
it's been pre-purchased, which was totally the impetus that I needed.
That's
So-
how I am with people buying me like cooking classes.
Yeah. Now you have to do it. So, because he knew I wanted to, but I was just like afraid of failing. Like, I was afraid of being mediocre.
Yeah.
And so then you're like, well, I don't want to like top out and be like, oh,
Right.
the thing I'm really passionate about, it turns out I can't do. And so it's almost better
Isn't that
to
the
like have it
saddest
be
thing?
the
Yeah.
unrealized dream where you're like, I could have done it.
Like
I could have.
to know, nope, I'm bad. I'm really bad at this.
Well, I kind of did that with music. Like, I was a vocal music performance major. I'm a fine singer. Like, and it was like more of an operatic program, which I knew I didn't want to do opera, but that was what was available at
Yeah.
my college. And so I did like kind of the folk circuit, like the coffee house circuit, and while I was doing entertainment reporting in Ohio, and I was really passionate about music, and I always have been also, but like, I hit a point where I'm like, this is about as good as I'm going to get at the guitar. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, I can accompany myself,
Yeah.
and that's about it. And
Yeah.
like, that's fine.
I
but-
have a bunch of guitars and I can't play them.
Right. Oh, same. So
You
I
know?
haven't played them in so long. And so it's just one of those things where I was like, okay. Like, I could keep digging into this and investing my time in it, but like, this isn't really something that I'm ever going to be as good as I
Yeah.
need to be where I want to be with it. And I think and like, I still enjoy it and I
Mm-hmm.
still enjoy playing, but like, instrumentally, I was never going to be at that point where
Yeah.
people are like, I would pay to see that. It was like friend rock, where people come to support you because they're your friend and you have like decent banter. But then I realized like, oh, the banter is my favorite part.
I'm only checking my phone because we're broadcasting this live on Twitter, and I was seeing if anybody had questions.
Oh, amazing.
And I
I'm
was
sure
just
they
seeing
don't.
if we have questions. Oh, there's tons of questions, but we won't get to them right now.
We can't get.
There's none questions.
No, there's no question.
I wanted to when you want to do comedy and you write in the manner that you do, you're so funny. I think the first thing I read
Thank
that
you.
you that I ever got to publish of yours was the Disney animatronic
Trump
Disney
thing.
thing, and that is so funny.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm sure you're going to send me more things eventually.
Well,
So
you
I can-
published something with me and Eric Sternberger last week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
Number
list.
2.
It counts.
I mean, it's ish.
It's like 1/3 of a
Well, he
piece.
reached out to me and was like, yeah, I know. Well, look, I had a book coming out. He reached out to me and was like, I have an idea. Like, do you want to throw in on this? And I was like, I have absolutely no time and I'm in. Yes. Because he lives in Columbus as well.
It's a very funny piece.
Thank you. But
It was
I
good.
agree. We were both just like,
It was
okay,
an
let's just get it out.
It was an expose.
Yeah.
It was very good.
An expose.
It drilled down into some of the horrible elected officials past, which are horrible. I mean, these guys
God,
are just
awful.
trash.
They're trash people. But yeah, so the first one I
They're
really
trash
spent more
people.
time with and I enjoyed.
But the style of your writing, who do you like? Who do you read that that writes in the manner? Because I really, really love Steve Martin's writing. I love his older stuff that he did for the New Yorker and for New York Magazine, and he did a whole collection called Pure Drivel that was published. And I constantly give that book to people whenever they talk about like comedy or if they're interested in comedy. I'm like, just read this book, and if you can be this, you will be successful.
Well, the hard part is like too.
He's so funny.
There are people that I could say like I'm really influenced by or really matter to me, but I'm not sure that my writing is even in the same vein as theirs necessarily.
Yeah.
It's more just like, oh, I wish it was.
Yeah.
But then when you write it, it becomes its own thing.
Right.
You know, like Steal Like an Artist, like Austin Kleon's book. I really believe in that. So at any rate, like it becomes your own thing. Even if you tried to make a Beatles album, you couldn't because you're not the Beatles. It's
Right.
gonna like take on your own.
But you're
thing.
going to make something.
You're gonna make something.
It's your interpretation
Exactly.
of an idea.
So at any rate, like I really love Jack Handey and his stuff on
Jack
SNL.
Handey. That was one of the biggest thrills that I got was reaching out to Jack Handey, and he wrote me one piece.
Amazing.
It took me a year and a half
That's
to get him.
awesome.
I got his email from somebody else who said, "Don't tell him how you got this contact info." And
You
I
gotta
said-
love that.
I said, "Okay,"
I won't.
and I reached out and I got him, and I was like, "Hey, I'd really love if you could." And he was like, "What's this about?" And then it just happened that Bob Eckstein did the illustration to accompany the article, so it made it into
Incredible.
this perfect thing. So
Incredible.
It like turned into a great
That's so
package.
much street cred. That's
It did,
amazing.
and then it let them kind of they became connected, and then they worked on a project together separately. Cut me out completely. That's fine.
That's fine.
But it was so
Whatever.
thrilling to get a piece by Jack Handey.
That's
Because,
so
I mean,
cool.
I had all the Deep Thoughts books. He's just
Oh, yeah.
so absurd.
I had
and
them
so
all
funny.
growing up, and like Ted L. Nancy, whoever that actually was.
Yes.
like Letters from a Nut.
I actually did the book jacket for when we actually had a book imprint at Lampoon years and years earlier. And there was a book called Hello Junk Mail by Ted L. Nancy. And I got to do all the book design for it. So I was
Amazing.
emailing him back and
I think
forth.
I have that book.
And he's in it. He is a nut.
Amazing.
He is an absolute crazy
But yeah,
person,
that
but
sort
very
of like
funny.
absurdist tinge
Yes,
on
that
things that
kind
are
of
like
stuff.
folksy mixed with like crazy absurdist.
Yeah.
Or like
stuff that takes a turn, but like
Yes.
in a such a nonchalant way.
Yes.
You never saw it coming, and they still don't acknowledge that it was a turn.
But there's some
You know?
joy in it, and I think that's why I love satire writing. Is like I really deeply identify with like Amy Poehler,
Mm-hmm.
and that she just brings a lot of joy and community to it. And I feel like having worked on like I've done marketing for comedy theaters, and I've done that sort of thing. I've seen like the stand-up world and the improv world, and they're all interesting and great and have great people in them. But there's like a segment of comedy that's like sort of just attracts like deeply broken people,
Yeah.
And that was never my favorite part, where it's like just a
No.
bunch of people being like, oh, this, like our life sucks,
Yeah.
and we hate everything. We're
Everyone's
depressed.
very depressed, and
Yeah.
all the jokes are around how they how depressed are you? Oh, I'm more depressed than you. Oh,
Yeah,
you have to,
and I
like
never really bought
you have to
that's
out-sad
like, yes,
somebody.
you have to outsad someone or outshock them.
Yeah.
And that's not my brand of comedy.
Yeah.
Like to me, I think that's really a reductive view of comedy. And so to me, it was about like the joy of sharing this laughter where like, even if you have very different backgrounds, you're like, oh yeah, like that we relate to that on
Yeah.
some level. And that's really funny. So I don't buy into the theory that like comedy comes from your brokenness
Yeah.
necessarily. I think it can, like there's definitely
can.
people that
Yeah.
I find funny that do that, but there's also people that seem like John Mulaney. It seems like
I love John Mulaney.
incredibly well adjusted,
Yeah.
but also incredibly funny just because of the way he sees the world. So like obviously like the Tina and Amy
Yeah.
people of the world. Mike Sachs is like
Mike Sachs.
He blurbed our book.
He lives up the street from Kaylin and I
He's
in Park Slope.
He's been like a satire hero of mine. So when he wrote back and was like, "Oh, I love this book," I was just like, "Oh, cool."
He's such a nice guy. He's such a nice guy, and I think maybe it's funny because I met him through just mutual friends, and I just met him socially, and we just hung out at a bar together.
Oh, nice.
And I just knew him as a guy who's a neighbor of mine. And then we hung out and we did like happy hour or whatever. And I connected with him with other people. And we just like, it was just more of a social thing. And then like later on, as I'm not seeing him as often, he is like the comedy, he's like the comedy authority. And I'm like,
You're like, wait a minute.
I just thought you were this guy I met up the street.
Has he written for you?
Yeah, one thing.
Oh, amazing.
One thing.
Amazing.
It's very funny.
Yeah, well, he is very funny.
It's called NPR fan fiction, and it's really, really funny.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I wrote a piece for Second City that got in a like a festival that they were doing for women, and it was an NPR pledge drive, but done as like a morning show crew.
Yeah.
And that was really fun to do, to like combine those worlds. I really love the NPR world.
Yeah.
And it's ripe for satire, even though I
they're
love
so
it.
funny. We did a thing, Janine Annette. I don't know if you know her.
I love her. I mean,
She
she's
wrote
like an
something.
internet friend, and not a real life friend.
This team of people, they're all this. I mean, I know them as writers that write, and then I know that they have these splinter off to these little private groups. But she wrote something called Wake Up America recently, and it was so good because it's so like a morning show, but it's Wake Up America, you're all
Right.
stupid, and everyone's dying in these horrible mass shootings, and the whole thing was just, and it's exactly how the news reports these things, and it's always thoughts and prayers, and then they go, our next story is this dog who can dance, and they're like, oh my
Good
god, that's
segue.
adorable.
That's amazing.
But
Now
it
we
was
don't
like-
feel pain.
And now it's like, but it was like 8 segues in a row, and it was just so
That's
blunt.
awesome.
It was
She's
great.
really smart.
Yeah.
And she's another example of someone that I don't think she lives in New York or LA. She's a mom, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And she like is a little bit older than the standard 23-year-old Chad. And so I really
I feel
love
like a
to
lot
see
of the
people
comedy
like
writers that you guys have produced through the Second City classes and the Belladonnas are these atypical comedy writers who are maybe later in life, maybe have had a completely different career.
Yeah.
Maybe they have
But I think that
families in a way.
informs their comedy
Yes.
writing in this amazing way where you're getting a different perspective and
Totally.
you're getting somebody that's actually lived some life, so has something to
Right.
say about it.
Yeah.
Like, not that, sorry, 23-year-old Chads. I think you can be very funny. But
No,
I think,
they had
like,
no voice.
But
They
they,
have no
don't have
idea.
a voice yet. Like, they haven't lived anything. Their parents paid for their college
Yeah.
to go to Harvard, and then they're
Yeah.
like, well, I'm ready to write comedy.
Exactly.
And I'm like, you haven't lived through anything.
Yeah, nothing horrible has happened to you
No,
yet.
and I also think like living in Ohio is. I used to see it like when I was first starting out. I feel like I apologized for it a lot. Like it
Mm-hmm.
was definitely something where I'm like, okay, so I'm not New York or LA, or I would just say like I'm Midwest based.
Yeah.
Like maybe they think it's Chicago.
Yeah.
But now it's like I see that as such an asset because I'm like I am in the heartland of all the things that are happening nationally, and I am right. Like my street for the elections was like half Democratic signs and
Yeah.
half Republican signs. And I'm like, that's so interesting to me
Yeah.
that your neighbors who you're all out like chit-chatting with, they're like side-eyeing each other like, oh, what are you? Okay, interesting. But I mean, I'm right at that point where it's a lot of the conversations that we're having are manifesting itself in my life and in my community in this really real way that I think is interesting to observe up close and good for my comedy and gives me a different voice than other people.
Yeah.
And so to me, that helps me establish a voice and a sensibility. And I like living, I live a block from the park and
Yeah.
I don't get stabbed and it's amazing.
Hey, not getting stabbed. Very
I think not
underrated.
getting stabbed is so underrated. But yeah, I love where I live and I like to come, I'd like to come here more often
Yeah.
and like,
Well, you
have it-
will, since you're a big-time author now.
I mean, since I'm famous now.
So let's talk about the book, because you guys
Let's do it.
wrote an article that luckily went in McSweeney's.
Yeah, so
And-
first we pitched it to the New Yorker, but we pitched it as slightly different. We pitched it as I think it was something like porn for the liberal woman.
Okay.
And probably, first of all, it's amazing that Emma Eschaltz even received it because I'm sure it went in her spam filter for that reason.
Red flag.
Maybe don't pitch something with porn in the title.
Yeah.
And then, so she very lovingly rejected it and said, this is, has some good stuff, but not for me. And then we were like, well, we don't want it to go on our site because we have done that and we want it to be, we're growing the site. So we want traffic and eyes on us.
Yeah.
And so we were like, Chris has been so supportive. Chris Monks, the editor of McSweeney's, has been so supportive of us just starting this new thing. And I think he's been very supportive to women's voices in general on McSweeney's. And it's only that he publishes, it's just him. So it's like 5 or 6 or 8 articles a week. So I think what he's doing is great and he gives great constructive feedback. But if you're not in those articles or if you're not breaking into that, you know,
Yeah.
we just wanted there to be more. So
Right.
in no way was our starting the Belladonna any comment negatively on what he or other people was doing.
There's only so many things people can publish. a
Yeah,
day.
there's just only so much bandwidth to publish
Right.
things, so we just wanted there to be more. So at any rate, he'd been very, very supportive from the beginning, and so we reached out to him, and he's like, yes, I love it. He ran the piece basically without edits, I think, and it was like a few weeks. We wrote it in January. It came out in early February, and you know, usually you write a piece and it gets like anywhere between 1 and 1,000 shares, right?
Yeah.
I mean, or like if you get 2,000 shares,
Oh,
you're
yeah,
like,
that's
oh
huge.
my gosh,
That's
like
huge.
look at me.
Yeah.
I think like the top piece that I had ever written got 15,000 shares on the Second City Network, and that was around it was like a piece of Ohio when they did the Republican National Convention,
Mm-hmm.
like basically writing a Dear John letter to Trump and
Mm-hmm.
being like, no, we don't want to be associated with your whole
Right.
thing. So that like tapped into an anger that people were having or whatever. So that got like 15,000 shares, and I was like, wow. Goodbye, world. I'm
That's
gonna
great.
go. Yeah, that was like the apex of my career. So that was just for comparison.
Right.
That's kind of where we had all been. And then we wrote this piece, and within hours, like a day, it got shared like 110,000 times on Facebook.
Wow.
And we were getting all these internet comments.
Yeah.
They don't track Twitter shares, so I don't know. But at any rate, just obviously something had hit a nerve, and it was around the time of the Me Too conversation really hitting its stride, and we just hit the right thing at the right moment. But I don't think I think we had a sense that we really loved the piece, and so we wanted it to do well in that sense, because we were just like, oh, this one really feels like in our voice and we really love it. But I don't think we were like sitting by the computer being like, well, you're welcome, world. Like it's gonna just blow up. Like we didn't have any expectations.
And it was
of
a
that.
pretty. It's not a long piece.
No.
It's very concise. It's got. I think in the original article it had the
12 vignettes.
like Tom Hardy with the LaCroix.
Yep.
I always want to call it LaCroix.
That was the genesis of this whole
Yeah.
thing, was us having a G chat. We have like an epic G chat just all day long, all the time, to talk about Belladonna things and other, you know, obviously we just talk about the world. And we were joking about, you know, we're always talking about monetizing the site and how we're going to do that as a young site, trying to figure out, you know, it's hard in comedy to figure out a sustainable way, as you know well.
Yeah, there isn't one.
There
I got,
isn't one,
I got
right.
news for you.
It's not, right. So we have these endless conversations where we back ourselves into corners. And so as a joke, we're always saying, like, I think what we should do is just have LaCroix sponsor us because we drink so much of it. And I'm like, so that should probably solve it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you know, just for the first year or two, they can just kind of be our benefactor. And I'm like, so I was like, to be clear, I don't know how sponsorships work. And I was like, so I'm just suggesting, I was like, in my mind, they just bring like Tom Hardy brings you LaCroix.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's a sponsorship. And I'm like, is that not it? And Fiona, I think, was like, that sounds like porn for Brooklyn women. And I was like, oh, there you go. And she goes, that's our monetization idea. We'll write like Tom Hardy LaCroix porn, and they'll send us envelopes of cash. And we were just, I mean, as a joke, we were like just laughing about it. And then Caitlin goes, that's a piece. That's really funny. And she opens a Google Doc. We all start throwing things into it. We wrote he takes me into his office and shuts the door to promote me. He promotes me again and again. I'm wild with ecstasy. Just not even as part of the piece, just we're making each other laugh on GChat. And then we had 2 or 3 like that, and she was like, okay, we're doing this. We're group writing a piece. We wrote it in like a day. And would have written it faster, but we have day jobs that we have to like go to and from. But we were all really excited about the concept because it felt really replicable.
Yeah.
But it also felt not exactly like something we had seen in that voice before. And so we were like, oh yeah, we have to submit this somewhere.
So it gets shared a bajillion thousands of times.
Yes.
And then how quickly did a publisher say, hey, I want this?
About 5 days.
That's amazing.
I know. So this has been so that was like this February. This has been the craziest year. So it comes out. We all like high five a million angels because it did well. And then we're just about to like go back to our daily lives to be like, that was neat.
Yeah.
We really succeeded in our goal to like, we had great traffic that week, you know. So we're like, we did it. Great.
Yeah.
The end. And then we got it. Hi. I definitely didn't spill coffee, so don't worry about it. So then we got an email from this woman who was like, hi, I work at this. I don't want to give like specifics because I feel like I don't want people to email this poor woman and be like, I have a book. She's like, that's not.
They're like, I have porn.
That's right. I got porn. You want my porn?
You want my Bigfoot porn?
Exactly. So, but It's easily Googleable. But at any rate, so she reached out to us and was like, she had just come over from another label, so she was kind of looking to fill her dance card, I surmise. She didn't say that. And she was sort of like, I'm the executive editor here. I just read your piece. I'm laughing my ass off. I just sent it all over my office, which her office is Hachette. Like, it's not like her office, which is an accounting firm with 4 people.
Right.
It's like Hachette UK, you know. So she's like... so yeah, we love it. My coworkers love it. Have you ever thought about turning this into a book? We're like,
have I? It's like it's been 4 days.
We were like, that's literally all we've thought about since we've been 8 is how do we turn anything that we've ever thought or written into a book, a comedy book. And we're like, yes. So we write back. So first we Google her to make sure she's a real person and that it's not like a highly literate phishing scam.
It's like a pyramid scheme.
Yeah, we were like,
we want to publish your book. You just have to pay us.
But it just doesn't happen. I mean, it just doesn't happen. So you just feel like you have to do your due diligence. So we reached out and we're like, yes, amazing. But like, we didn't really have our hopes too up because it seemed like, well, maybe she sends like 50 of those and then it drops off and you never hear from them again or whatever. And so we were like, yes, amazing. Like, we'd love to chat with you about it anytime, or we could put a proposal together, or how does this work kind of thing. And then she wrote back, we kind of went some back and forth over email for the next couple of days, and then she made us an offer.
Boom.
No proposal.
That's awesome.
It doesn't happen.
No.
Ever. And before anyone that is listening gets very, very jealous, please know that we had all of the traditional no's and experiences up until that point.
Yeah.
So this isn't like, I just got into comedy one day and I just didn't have to work for it at all. Like, we've been rejected so many times.
But those stories are sad.
Yeah, those stories are sad. We don't want to tell them. Yeah, but I mean, it is important to know that somebody on Twitter had like a hashtag or something, a discussion where it was sort of like, talk about your, like, how your rejection shaped you. And I said, or like, what was your first McSweeney's piece, or how many times were you rejected by McSweeney's? And I said, I was rejected 14 times before I got a yes. But then my second yes, I got a book deal from. So like, keep going, and that piece was rejected by somebody else. So if we'd just been like, oh, maybe it doesn't have legs,
right,
then we wouldn't have this. So.
Well, I would have published it.
Thanks. Do you publish books? Should we do it?
Humorist Books launched it in August.
Amazing.
Humoristbooks.com.
Good to know. Good plug. Good segue. So at any rate, so that happened, and then through that we got an agent. Like, we were the saddest people. We were like, so sorry to be these people. How do we do this? Like, how do we get an agent to negotiate this contract for us? And she was so utterly fair with us and was like, go tell them you have an offer on the table, and you'll be surprised that people might want to work with you.
It's like if you don't have any sort of an offer and you have a book, nobody wants to represent you.
With you. And then
like,
the second
once you've already sold everything, and they have to do literally nothing but take 10% or whatever, they love that.
They love it. So sure enough, people were like, we would love to work with you. And we're like, amazing. So it was a good week. And then, so we got we interviewed like 3 or 4 agents in 2 days.
What's your literary agent?
David Black Agency. It's
Is that
Susan
like all
Rayhofer.
literary?
Yeah.
And are you represented as a single group?
Yeah, we're just like represented together as
a Belladonna group.
Not as the Belladonna, because we keep it. It's not a Belladonna book per se, even though we're the 4 editors.
But you 4 are represented together.
Yeah.
So you don't all have separate agents who are fighting with each other.
Exactly.
That's good.
That's very important, and we all get along really, really well. We just and that is an important facet of this, is like finding your tribe or your people that, like, I think each one of those women are like comedy queens who are so hardworking and so talented, and I'm so lucky to like partner with them. But the second we came together and we're like, we're really going to like put our full collective force into this and trust each other. It's hard to trust each other's comedy work and to just trust that we can make it better together than it would be individually. Like, big things started happening for us that would not have happened, I firmly believe, individually.
Right.
Not to say any of us wouldn't have had any success individually. I'm sure that we would have, but I think we have accomplished much more together by just clicking in and finding that group, that flow that like worked for us. And for some people that might be alone, and for some people that could be 2 people or 4. For us it was 4. It takes 4 of us to write a book, but we did it. But that has just, everything started to open up when we found our people. And so that was, and then our agent helped us get like a mini proposal together, which is still like 80 pages. So a mini proposal to shop like a parallel US deal for the same book on the same timeline. And so we met with publishers and everything that
so
week.
Exciting.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So then going from the written article, which is not that long, and then you scaled it to a book.
Yeah.
So you had how many vignettes in the article?
12.
And then how many are in the book?
I don't know exactly off the top of my head. Somewhere in the 70s, I think.
So that's a lot more.
Yeah.
So you broke it up into categories, like
yeah. So
topics?
we decided that would be, and I think it was at the behest of one of our editors, which was a great idea. It was like, instead of just randomly coming up with as many as you can, why don't we be like 4? You have some
Holidays.
literary ones. You have some, political ones.
What are the categories like? Political, holidays,
There
family?
is.
Do you have a book with you?
Do I? I don't know. I think I may have given it away.
Oh.
I have postcards, but they don't have the. It's like new erotica for literature is one, like women from literature. Historical is another one.
Ooh, historical's a good one.
We have a great one about Eleanor Roosevelt. That's amazing. Like where it's like a remake of her My Day columns. Yeah. And we have for parents, which that was the trickiest one because it was important to us because we feel like that group of feminists is not very seen in the world, but and they have really unique feminist challenges, but you don't want to eroticize children in any way or risk, like you're like just the mere like combination of those Venn diagrams is like such a dangerous
Keep
thing.
Them very apart.
Like you have to find a way to like make it like, to be clear we're not pedos.
Right.
Yeah. So that took the longest to like figure out exactly the right entry point for that. But parents is one, pop culture is one that was very easy to write. Like we had to trim those down because you could write an endless amount of those.
So that means there could be more of these books.
We hope if there's demand and the first book sells well, we would love to write another
Which
one.
It will, obviously.
I mean, as well as it already has.
From what I've seen online, all these places are sold out.
Well,
right?
In theory.
So they're going to be putting up more? I saw a thing.
I think, it depends on how many they got, the first time. But, yeah, they're going to restock them. And it seems to be doing well. We're excited.
It's only the second day that it's been available.
We're excited. I will say this. Having the Belladonna as a group, even though this isn't an official Belladonna book, and one of the reasons we didn't want to do that is because it's just us. Yeah. And we see the Belladonna as not just us. Right. We are the founders of it, but it's this community of people. So if we do a Belladonna book, which I would be totally open to and would love to do in the future, that's a lot more complicated of figuring out how do you pay everyone in the right way, like how do you make everyone feel represented and what's the process and all of that. So if we were ever asked to do that or had an opportunity to, I would love to, but we didn't want it to seem like, well, why? Thanks a lot for taking all the credit. Like way to go. But we wanted to instead use this as an opportunity, like in all of our press opportunities or events, like we're really going to be shouting out that community and trying to like bring attention because they're doing amazing work. Yeah. And there are some really incredible people from getting their first byline ever to people that write on like, a Samantha Bee show or Sasha Stewart wrote for Larry Wilmore when it was on. So like we've had some authors and, some bigger people, but I like that it's like all levels and we really want to use this to elevate those voices.
It's fun getting those writers because I'm finding a lot of people who have maybe day jobs writing at other places don't get the outlet to write short little pieces.
Yes, that is true. Yeah, I think they don't, or they want to, or maybe they're not fully in the writer's room and they're just getting to submit sometimes, like they're doing social media or something like that. So we're really interested in how we can expand those like traditional pipelines for women. Yeah. I think we're still really young in our own, in our own publication. So we're just sort of finding our voice in that and our advocacy in that. But that's really important to us is to start to have the conversation of like, okay, great. We're building this thing together. It seems to be working. We have this great internal community where we're sharing opportunities and people are getting stronger and giving each other feedback and sharing packets and opportunities. But then like, where does this go from there? How can we continue to widen the pathway to actually go to some paid opportunities, to go to some careers, and, just to figure out how to make this as impactful as we possibly can.
Well, you're building a new brand is overall what you're doing. And I think that it's fun. I mean, there's Reductress, and they're sort of female skewed. satire?
They are. I mean, it's just more.
But I feel like you guys took yours in a completely different direction, where it's more
we
satire.
intentionally did that because we didn't want to step on their toes.
Yeah.
Several of us have written, contributed to them before,
Yeah.
but they're a parody of a women's magazine, so like
Exactly.
a Cosmo.
So it's kind of fake news articles-ish in that kind of construct.
I've heard it called the Feminist Onion. I don't know if they would call it that, but that's sort of
that's
in
why
the
they're
voice.
yeah. That's how I
but
see
there,
them being.
so there
very
is
different.
a very much a uniform voice that they want to achieve because it's that magazine-y
Yeah.
voice, which
Right.
can be wildly funny. But our intent was to create a site for women that was designed to not have one corporate voice,
Right.
but to elevate individual voices to where people felt comfortable not having to like just write in one style, but to
That's
explore
exactly
their own
what I like to do.
their
So
own voices.
I felt like I feel like sometimes McSweeney's falls into that with the Onion, and I feel like they have a tone that they very much stick to, and they do very good at sticking to that tone. People absolutely love it.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people don't write that way, though.
Right.
And I feel like it's a good place on Weekly Humorist and on Belladonna's and on Poison Case and Robot Bud and in the New Yorker.
Right.
There's a variety of voices that are different.
Yeah.
And I enjoy that because I feel like people can kind of it's like a smorgasbord of comedy, and you can get something that maybe someone isn't into, but you have enough that everyone kind of gets something good out of the site.
Well, and for women, yes. And for women, like if you've been in stand-up as a woman, they will almost always tell you like, oh, we already have a woman on this bill.
Yeah.
And so like as if you
As if all
couldn't be a
women
different
jokes,
kind of
exactly.
funny. Like,
Yeah.
oh, well, sorry, someone's already telling your jokes. And you're like,
we don't need any more period jokes.
that's right.
They're like, what?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
'Cause that's all we can joke about. And
That's how people
to
think.
be clear, if that's a valid thing for satire
Yeah.
also that we welcome, but it's not the only thing that women talk about, so
Yes.
it's like or in different voices, you
Right.
could do similar material from different angles. So for us, it was really important to be like, there's this absurdist piece, or there's really highbrow stuff, or really biting political
Yeah.
or social satire, or just silly
Right.
light things that are really fun. Sometimes we ask specifically in our newsletter, could just send us like light fun things because it's
Yeah.
2018 and everyone's tired.
Less news.
We're
topical
tired
stuff.
this month. Like, send us funny, like light things about
Evergreen,
cats.
normal.
Yes.
Yes.
And we've had some really amazing things like that go
Yeah.
big on our site just from,
People like it.
yeah,
They
it's
like
fun.
it. It's
Everyone
like
likes to laugh
it's
right now.
escapism.
Honestly, I think that's part of why our book has enjoyed any level of success is like, these are there's weighty issues
Yeah.
underlying it, underpinning it. And I'm glad that they're a part of it. We definitely wanted to talk about emotional labor and talk about these, like the Me Too movement and things that we really care about. But those conversations do drain you, even though they're important to have.
Yeah.
And so to us, this was like the steam release valve of
Yes.
that, of just like, we still want to talk about it. This is still a part of who we are, but we need to laugh.
Yeah.
Like, we're really sad because it's of all the things that have happened. And and it was also very serendipitous that the midterms went the way they did. I think
Yeah.
that was helpful. But yeah, so it's good to just also have that lighter side and be able to approach it from a joyful place too.
I think that's fun. Also, maybe the way the internet is anonymous, and maybe female writers have noticed. I don't notice gender when I get the emails necessarily at all. I just read the content. So I think
If
maybe
everyone was like you, Marty, the world would be a better
I don't know.
place.
I don't know if I'm doing it on purpose. Maybe I'm just lazy, but I'm like reading the content. I'm like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, that's
it's
good. That's funny.
Yeah,
All right.
flag that for later.
Yeah.
And then it's not, you see that it's a girl or a boy, and maybe you don't know if it's a girl or a boy based on the name because there's lots of gender neutral names.
Right.
But I mean, I think that's also been something that it's like you can on the internet the cream rises to the top because you can kind
It's
of
more egalitarian.
Yeah.
In theory, at least, you hope.
In theory, it seems to be helping. How about that news story about how there weren't enough pitch packets for late night because there weren't enough contenders?
I saw that.
I was just
I
like,
did
what?
see that. Yeah, I don't buy into that theory, obviously.
Yeah, there's so many people.
Well, that goes back to the conversation of widening the pipeline of like comedy writing, and women in comedy writing are like an iceberg. Like, you're seeing this little piece sticking out, but there's all this below the surface. There's all this talent just sitting there waiting to come to the surface. And if you're not in UCB, if you're not in these places, you're not able to, or you don't feel safe there, because they've had some issues as well with things. And I'm not making a comment on that one where I haven't really been a part of that scene, so I can't make a comment about it. But I would say, like, women don't always feel welcome or safe in any space for, some reason. So it's their prerogative. So at any rate, I think like making it wider to be like, hey, there's all these great voices that clearly have something to say in this moment. Like, I think the reason women are enjoying a lot more success in the satire world is they have a lot to say right now. There's a lot of anger coming forward of women being like, you know what? Yeah. Actually, this is not okay and this is not right. And I have all these pent-up thoughts about this, and that's making for great comedy. Like, great art sort of arises in time of, not that all satire is great art, but you know what I mean? Can be.
Can be. I think the really perfect satire articles that are topical are the kind that they're really funny, but they also educate you in something. It makes you laugh, it also makes you think.
Yes.
Because it shows the hypocrisy and it shows how ridiculous something is.
I have found personally that any time a piece has done well for me, and this, I'm not saying this is necessarily true 100% of the time across the board for everyone, but for me, the pieces that always have the most success being shared and responded to in a public way are because they're at the intersection of like funny but anger. And people reaching out and being like, that it gave them that extra like, yeah, you know what? That's not right. I'm going to share that. Yeah. The lighter pieces are great and they can do well too. But it's usually, for me, it's been that moment of someone being like, oh, I feel that way too. And that's why they click the share button. It's not necessarily because, I hope it's because they laughed. Yeah. But I don't think it's just because they laughed. I think they identified
Courtney Kokak. I
love her.
I got to meet her. I was in Los Angeles 2 weeks ago, and I got to meet her, and she's delightful.
She writes for Danger and Eggs on Amazon.
On Amazon. She's very funny.
She's extremely funny and smart.
She wrote something for me around the Kavanaugh hearings, and it was like it was a rage satire piece where she had channeled her anger into something that was incredibly constructive.
Yep.
It wasn't just shouting on the internet. It was doing something very creative and funny and poignant, and it was showing the ridiculousness of someone saying not to believe women, and it was perfect. It was like, yeah, I'm going to do this because
she's really great. And that's why I love satire in general, is because it is a harder form, I think, and I'm biased, but I think satire is a harder form, but a higher, like a greater form of comedy, because you have these raw emotions that you have to harness and turn into something, and to try to point out a vice in society, to try to have a singular angle where they can see through your sarcasm or your hyperbole and see what you're really trying to say. You're really trying to bring justice in some way. I think it attracts people that have a strong, like, justice antenna. Yeah, where they want to make things right.
Yeah, and I try to be a receptive editor when someone sends a piece like that, where it's like, you can tell that they have that going on, and they have this sort of constructive rage where it's going to actually inform someone, and you feel, as the editor, you want to get this up as soon as possible. I'm like, it becomes like my mission to publish their piece because of this amazing message that they have for the world. And you're like, yes, I'm going to be part of this. And you're like, you try to write back, ASAP, going up, and you have to rush to your office, and you have to get it up, and then you want to, you feel good posting it because you're sharing their words.
There's no greater crack in the world than writing a piece and having that instant gratification of like a timely piece where it goes up that same day or like the next day. Oh, that's good. It's rare.
I get up in like the next hour when people jump on something really good.
But that's rare.
I drop everything and I'm like, I have to make art for this immediately.
Yes, exactly. Not only does that mean the writer has to be able to cogently distill their rage into a constructive, funny idea quickly, which is hard to do, but it means they have to find the right outlet for it, and that editor has to be willing to throw. I mean, there's a lot of things that have to like fall in place the right way so it doesn't happen that much, but when it happens, it's so good.
Yeah. I'll be on like the subway, and we kind of have subway, sometimes subway signals for the cell phones, and I'll get something on one stop. It's like every stop you get Wi-Fi. And then in between the stops, you get no Wi-Fi. So I'll like get an email in one stop, and then I read it. And I'm like, and I have to like write them back. And I'm like, I'm posting this right when I get off the subway.
Well, the pace of news now is so fast that like by the time you get to the next stop, you're like, no, never mind.
It's already old.
Sorry, we're not talking about that anymore.
We've moved on.
Not really, but kind of.
The news cycle is already over for that piece. Sorry.
Well, we'll get pieces like 3 or 4 days later, and I'm sure that in their mind they're like thinking, I'm still thinking about this and talking about this. And it's like by the time we would get it up and people would read it, it's out of the news cycle, which is crazy. That's a crazy fast news cycle. And it's
become a classic piece by then.
Yeah.
I brought up
throwback.
I brought up your article from McSweeney's. Can you read any vignette that you like from the book?
Sure. Yeah.
Now, these are any from the McSweeney's in the book?
They're all in the book.
Okay, so they are in the book. Well, you pick out one, and then you get to read one, and then that can be your awkward story for Talkward.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's see. This is one that has gotten a lot of likes. Like, people really enjoy this. Okay. I get catcalled on the street by a construction worker. He says that he can see I'm smart because I have enormous books. He tells me he's reading the latest Zadie Smith novel. I invite him to join my book club and spend all night fantasizing about his insightful commentary around nonlinear plot structure.
You ladies are so smart.
Oh, thank you.
You knew all kinds of big words.
We had to look them all up.
I did.
We were like synonyms for good.
And that's why I like being in Caitlin's book club. I'm in your co-author's book club.
She's amazing.
And the whole group is amazing.
She's incredibly well read. Her whole apartment is like all the books you wish you had time to read and were reading.
I have many books in my apartment, and I've read maybe 1% of them.
And I don't know when she reads them. She reads constantly, but she's the most driven person. You know, she's always comedy writing. She's teaching. She's writing this book.
Yeah.
And yet,
she makes time for everything.
It really makes me look bad because I try to use that as my example for why I haven't read things. And she's like, oh, yeah, I read that and then this and then that other thing.
And the book club is so organized where we'll meet and then we'll talk about all these things. And then the next day she'll send this detailed email with links to everything we talked about. Things where we can read more about a topic. It's so good. It's so wonderful.
She is a lovely, administrator in the highest sense, not an executive assistant sense, but like she is just has that mind to be like, how do we organize this? How do we move it forward? She just keeps us all moving forward. Yeah. Like she's a lot of the reason that the Belladonna works as well as it does. Everyone, like each one of us plays a different equal part, but she is just so driven that she won't let things fall off the plate. She's not the person that's like, oh, I wish we had done this.
Right.
She makes it happen.
It's good to have people like that around you.
She's just a dynamo.
They just drive everything forward. New erotica for feminists, satirical fantasies of love, lust, and equal pay is in bookstores now. Go pick it up. And you guys are doing a huge book tour of events, I know, and specifically in New York. So if people are listening in New York, you have stuff tonight, tomorrow, and Friday.
Tonight, Fiona Taylor is going to be reading at Susan Shapiro's book event in Brooklyn at the Barnes & Noble in Park Slope.
In Park Slope on 7th Avenue.
So. Yes, correct. And then tomorrow night, we have an event at Wild Fang, which is like, if you've read the book or the piece, the Wild Feminist T-shirts that are referenced in the piece, that's where those are from. So we're very excited to partner with them to do an event. It's not a reading, it's like a book signing and then a shopping event where they're going to give 20% off to people, and we're going to have light LaCroix snacks.
Oh, nice.
LaCroix and pizza, because we're very classy. And then Friday, we're speaking at Google, which is exciting.
Really?
Yeah, we're very fancy.
Wow.
So we're speaking at Google during the day, and then in the evening, we're going to have our big official book launch at Books Are Magic in Brooklyn, and that'll be at 7:30. And then we're going to have like some mingling to follow at 61 Local down the street.
Okay.
But yeah, that's our big event. Like come hang out.
Everyone come hang out.
Yeah, come hang out at one or all of those events.
Be a groupie.
And then Sunday we're going to be in D.C. with Alexandra Petrie from the Washington Post, who is another hero of mine.
Are they interviewing you?
She's going to be in conversation with, because that's very much the trendy thing right now, to be in conversation with someone. Which, who better to be in conversation with than her? She's hilarious.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
This is so exciting. And this is just beginning. I mean, the book comes out, and then you do a tour, but you can do book events for as long as this book is out.
3 or 4 years, I think.
You know?
Yeah. At least. Is that not how it works?
And it's in paperback.
It's in paperback in the U.S. It's in hardcover in the U.K.
Oh, I saw the yellow book is the U.K. version.
It's basically the same book.
Yeah.
It has some slightly different. There's a few things that like don't translate, where they'd be like, "Oh, we don't have Target," or "We don't have," where you'd have to translate it to like, "What's your Target?" Which, by the way, their version of TJ Maxx is called TK Maxx.
That's an odd small change,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
TK Maxx.
TK Maxx. So things like that.
Yeah.
Or like you can't say a box truck, you say a lorry. So we went through with a fine-tooth comb for those references. And there are more than you would imagine.
That's funny.
Or where they'd go, So I was very sad because I had written a lot of this one, but there was one that got cut from the book that we will be reading at some events that was a very private tour of Paul Newman's salad dressing factory, where it's just the ghost of Paul Newman. Who doesn't love Paul Newman?
Everyone likes Paul Newman.
Everyone loves Paul Newman. And so that got cut from the book because they were like, we don't understand this because we don't have Paul Newman salad dressing.
What a horrible thing.
And I was like, that's awful for you.
Yeah, you're like, I see a problem here. We need.
I mean,
get
they
Paul
knew who he
Newman
was as an
salad
actor,
dressing.
but they were just like, does he make salad dressing? And we're like,
Yes.
It all goes to charity. It's amazing. Yes.
His popcorn is also very good.
I know. So at any rate, they didn't get our references to like, passion next to the socceroonie sauce.
Those must be very interesting email exchanges.
Oh, we've sent some really amazing emails back and forth where you're like, I never thought I would email these words to another professional person.
Yeah.
And yet here we are.
Yeah.
Where they're like, I'm not sure that's like the term here for like whatever it is. But yeah, so it's been incredible. But we've had a really great team on both sides of the pond who really believe in this. And we've had an incredible response from our Belladonna community, from our Second City community, from our satire. I just feel like the satire writing community.
We're so happy for you.
Everyone is so happy for each other. Like when someone,
so excited.
But that's another reason I love satire because it's like someone does well and everyone comes around and is like giving them high fives and being like, "You did it!" instead of like, "That was my opportunity.
Should have been me.
Should have been me." Yeah, I feel like we all lift each other up.
Yeah,
so.
totally.
Thank you so much for
you're so welcome
for having me here and for all your support of this book.
Oh, of course. So pick up this book. It's this is a great gift book. It's a great
Very
book to
good holiday
read.
book.
It's a great gift book. You can give it for Hanukkah and Christmas and Kwanzaa
All the things.
and if you're New Year's gifts. Do people give New Year's gifts? I don't know.
This
would be a great thing. Everyone's going to be with Thanksgiving and they're going to be with their families and they don't know what to talk about because everybody hates their families. So this is a great book to bring everyone together. They can just read from this book at the dinner table around the Thanksgiving turkey.
It will make your conservative fathers so upset.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it will give you so much to talk about. Or they'll just quietly go away and turn on Fox News, and then you can go hang out.
Wouldn't that be? You should get the people on the Fox and Friends to profile this book. Maybe they would.
I don't think it would go the way we would hope.
Yeah, probably.
We did, however, do a show where someone had the suggestion that people should send it, like they should buy a copy and mail it to their worst senator. And I think that's great. Like, I would love for like Ted Cruz to get 100 copies of this and be like, damn it.
What is this?
I hate this.
Pence would love this.
There's 2 Pences now. Greg Pence, his brother, his whiter, worse brother, somehow got elected to the House of Representatives.
Oh, God.
What we need now is more Pence.
We need more Pence.
So, like, I don't know how that's going to go, but...
You should have had one of these the next time can be written, a vignette can be written by Pence's wife. Could be very specific to Pence.
I had lunch with a man today.
No!
It was everything I'd hoped. We had soup.
Oh, Brooke Preston, everybody.
I can't top that.
Follow Brooke at her amazing Twitter handle, @BigU, which I just learned is not how you say her Twitter handle.
No, you say Bigu.
Bigu.
Yeah, Bigu.
So
like
it's
Bigu.
BIGU is her Twitter handle, everybody. It's only 4 characters.
I know, which is why I'll never get rid of it.
It's amazing.
I sadly did not realize Twitter's full potential when I joined the site in 2008 and just was like, this will be a fun thing to try for 4 weeks and then move on. And so I can't let go of the 4-letter handle. It's so great.
Love it.
But it is like it's a silly nickname my husband and I have for each other because like what it basically is shorthand for is like when you are with your person and you have like that culture of 2 where there's only 2 people that are the same kind of weird and you find the person that's like your brand of weird. So that's what we're like. We're Bigus. That's what we are. And I don't know. It came from some long lost conversation that we don't know the origin of anymore. So we don't know what that was or, well, but that part of it has stayed with us. And so we call each other Bigu.
So that's the story behind the Twitter handle.
Yeah.
So no one will ever forget your Twitter handle, even though to remember it, I say Big U just because it's
everyone
the word.
does. That's what everyone. I assume that everyone thinks I'm posturing. There is a rapper, a street rapper named. I think his is like Big U1. Oh no! And so occasionally I get like
added.
Yeah, I get like the errant mention from like Rick Ross, who's like, shout out to my homie. And I'm like, oh, it's me.
And you're like, thank you.
I just want to send a selfie back.
Buy my
of
book.
Like, yeah, I want to send a selfie back of like me in my kitchen in Ohio that's like, love you. Like, we're homies. Like,
I was just cleaning up.
yeah,
Thought
exactly.
I'd say hi.
Like, I'm volunteering at my daughter's kindergarten. So, yeah. But I would hang out with them.
Sure.
I think I would make a great addition.
If you're ever in Athens, Ohio.
Yeah, well, I live in Columbus now.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Or, I mean, I'll come to Athens.
You'll come to Athens.
I love Athens. It's only a couple hours away. But yeah, if you're ever in Columbus, Ohio, come hang out.
So pick up this book. What's the website for the book? Is it neweroticaforfeminists.com? It's
links to buy. There's a handy book club kit that you can download for free.
Neat.
To make it easy to make it your book club pick with like discussion questions and recipes and games to play and lots of, fun things like that.
So definitely go to neweroticaforfeminists.com.
Buy it, request it at your local library. If your local bookseller doesn't have it, please request it because that's really helpful that they can see that people want it.
And can you buy this for digital?
Yes, we have an e-reader version and there's an audiobook version.
There's a narration of all of these vignettes.
This woman that did it is incredible. Her name is Sunila Nankani. I really hope I pronounced that correct. She's a professional audiobook narrator. She did Giselle's book, no big deal.
Hello.
So basically we're Giselle is what I'm saying. And she had just the right pitch perfect voice for it and loved it and loved what we were doing. So yeah, there's an audio book.
You're like, oh, this book is hot. Did I write this book?
I know. I was like, woo. I was like, turns out this is a good book. But no, she was amazing, and she just hit it just right to make it like sexy and funny and warm. And so, even if you buy the print book, I totally think the audiobook is worth the additional.
Yeah,
it's a thin book. It's not a huge investment. It's not like
get the audiobook
get
or
them both.
Join Audible for that free month or whatever the heck they can do.
I love Michelle Obama as much as the next person. She's gonna sell her books.
Yeah.
She's all set.
She's fine.
She's gonna do fine. We need our books.
Listen to this on the book on the Audible. New Erotica for Feminists: Satirical Fantasies of Love, Lust, and Equal Pay by Caitlin Kunkel, Brooke Preston, Fiona Taylor, and Carrie Whitmer. In bookstores now. Thanks for being on the big show.
This is amazing.
Thank you. It's so nice to finally meet you.
It's so great to meet you.
Follow Brooke Preston at Bigu.
It's Bigga.
It's spelled Big U. I'm Marty Dunnix. Follow me at Marty Dunnix and follow Weekly Humorist at Weekly Humorist. Sign up for our weekly e-newsletter at weeklyhumorist.com. Buy digital issues at weeklyhumorist.com and get the Android or Apple iTunes app in the Android or Apple iTunes app stores. Just look up Weekly Humorist for weekly digital issues. Thanks for listening. This is Talkward, and we'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you, Brooke. This is so nice.
You're the best.
Oh, I'm trying.
Thank you. That was awesome. Mm-hmm. You're so much fun. I could just talk to you all day.
Well, thank you. Well, I'll see you guys again. I need to take a photo of you for the podcast thing. I'll take a picture of you here.
Okay. Yes, please. Yes, please. So this is not for public consumption, but real question, like how do you stay afloat, how do you make your money? This is your main job, right?
I'm trying to make money with this. I had money that I got from Lampoon. Mm-hmm. Lampoon owed me a lot of money, so they finally paid me, and I used that to launch this.
Oh, good.
And I had one guy that gave me a little bit of seed money. And I've been using that to float to try to monetize this entire thing. So I'm
like
working
ads and
on
stuff,
it.
or
like ads bring in like nothing. So I'm trying to get sponsorships for the live show.
Sweet LaCroix sponsorship.
Yeah, I'm trying to get sponsorships for the live show, the podcast, and the website. And I mean, we sell digital issues. We have like 70 downloads of the app.
Okay.
So every time I have a new issue, I hit like a little button and it's a push notification. It says 71 people just saw this.
Amazing.
Push notification. I know, but but then they have to actually buy the individual issues.
Right.
And no one does that. Right. And I put up a paywall on the site because I got the same thing that the New Yorker has.
Right.
And no one. People, it's like $2.99 a month. People, come on.
This is what we're running into is like people need and want comedy.
Yeah.
They know that they do. They'll tell you like, "Oh, it's so good to like. It's so important to laugh." But then you're like, "Okay, it's like $5 a month," and they're like, "Oh."
They're like, no. You're like, that's one cup of like.
And you're like,
that's one of double Americano.
You literally just spent $8 at Starbucks
Yeah.
on, on something that you threw out half of later. So
Yeah.
it's like they think of it as so important in their life, but they haven't been conditioned to pay for it.
I know.
So
I'm
it's trying to figure
get
that
them,
out.
And it seems, and everyone's like, do a Patreon, and I'm like, okay.
But I feel like the problem is
that's
we all have
begging.
overlapping audiences. I don't have an issue with it on its own, except you're really like my issue with
If
I do.
you're trying to build a real business.
Yes, my
you
issue
can't
with it
say
is like
Patreon
that's
is
like
my
saying
business.
my business isn't really worth it. Donate because you like me.
Yeah.
In my mind, I'm like, you're creating a service that people should want to find a way to pay for, like
Right.
in some way.
So I do have a thing that is like a subscription thing. So it's basically you can
I've
you
seen it.
can read 10 issues and then it blocks you and it says like you gotta subscribe, or you can just clear out your cache folder and then you can get around it. But
Very stringent.
yeah, and some people have subscribed, like random people who I don't know who read the emails have subscribed and they pay $5 a month.
Like I give $5 a month to McSweeney's, and I wish it could be more, but like I do it because like they've been important to me. They've
Yeah.
given me a lot, and like I'll do it, but like there's a limit to how many of those you can do a month. Like if every
totally.
comedy starts
Yeah.
to do that, you're not going to do that, and so we're looking for, because a lot of people have been like, just have a Patreon, and we're like, first of all, Chris Monk's put a ton of work into that, and he still only has, I don't know, less than 2,000 or right at 2,000 followers, which they have a huge audience. So I'm like, to have that size audience and only get 2,000 people willing to give that amount of money is not promising for us.
I don't understand I mean, they could make money if they wanted to without doing the whole Patreon thing, but because
Well, I mean, it's just Chris. Like,
I know
they
it's
need
just
more
Chris,
people
but
to do
he
more.
He needs to have a business model where they can actually just sell advertising.
Yeah.
So sell some advertising. The New Yorker sells advertising, and they're a classy joint.
Yes, we'll see.
All right.
Okay.
So we're going to take a picture.
Set up nice. Put my thing. Put da 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 da. All right. Don't make me. You got to hold it high. I have a weak Welsh chin.
Okay. I think this is good. Beautiful.
Awesome.
I think I'm going to hold on to the pictures.
Don't. I'll just reject them. That's fine. Good enough.
Good enough.
Wait, no. Do one more and hold it higher.
Okay.
I know my angles. I make my husband like go up to the second floor and shoot me from up there.
I've never used this camera before, so I'm going to try this camera. This is one I usually use. And the actual only money-making thing, I don't think I'm actually ever going to make money on the website, but it's a promotional tool, and the top line of the company is Humorous Media, and that does TV development.
Oh, interesting.
So we have we have like 5 shows in development. I have one
Amazing.
show. I was in Los Angeles pitching a show, and it's a cartoon based on the Weekly World News, which is a sci-fi comedy brand, and
That's great.
Jonathan Ames is writing it.
Oh,
Jonathan
great.
Ames is a writer who did Bored to Death on HBO.
Mm-hmm.
So I pitched this TV show in Los Angeles with Jonathan Ames in the animation studio, and TBS bought it.
Amazing.
We haven't gotten the deal yet, but they bought it. And I don't know what that means. So
Great. So that'll
So-
help float things for a
Yeah.
while.
if we actually get like a full season, there's all these ifs.
But they're going to buy the pilot at least, right? Or how does that work?
They're gonna buy the pilot.
What are they going to pay for it? Can you tell me? I won't tell anybody.
Probably much less than you're expecting. Probably like.
Well, everything in comedy is much less
I
than you're
think,
expecting.
like they're like, yeah, you're being executive producer. You get like executive producer fee. I'm like, okay, that's like $2,000.
Really?
It's like ridiculously sadly low.
That is sad.
So I'm like, oh, I thought I was gonna make like a lot of money. Like,
Right.
No, if it goes to series.
I'm
it'll make-
asking because like we've had some people be like, "Oh, do you want to try to develop a pilot
Sure.
on this idea?" Which great, but we're like, maybe we could just we know how TV works enough to know that like probably it won't make it to like a series, but
Yeah.
maybe we could sell the pilot,
Right.
and that would like lead to relationships that where we could write another pilot and sell that pilot.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to keep getting paid to not have to go
Yeah.
back to doing.
I think the
full
writer
paycheck.
makes money on the pilot, so I'm not making any money because I'm just a producer. But the But the writer would probably make like.
But you have the word executive in your title.
I know.
Seems like that means more money.
It doesn't.
Interesting.
It doesn't.
High.
Okay, so you want it to be high.
Yes, hold it nice and high.
Alright, so I just want to make the sign in there. And I'll go way back.
Yes.
You just turn the lights completely off.
Yes.
Let's see if that works. I think so. Better?
See, much better. That's how you do the like, oh, I weigh 20 pounds less than you think I do. I learned that from my friend who's a model. She's like, oh, shoot high. Always shoot high and down.
Always shoot high and down. That's like
yeah,
selfies.
only people that are like actual models shoot, like when you see a celebrity and they're like, do this.